is especially true when it comes to the climate crisis, which is why we will work together and continue to work together to address these issues, to tackle these challenges, and to work together as we continue to work operating from the new norms, rules, and agreements that we will convene to work together on to galvanize global action. With that, I thank you all. This is a matter of urgent priority for all of us, and I know we will work on this together.
Let's all get together and make it come together for the togetherness of the together.
And love one another right now.
Well, has the environment completely collapsed and you're experiencing like rampant global warming in Florida since the Supreme Court ended the EPA's ability to do anything?
Yeah, it's so hot that I'm broadcasting from outside for some reason. I don't know. That doesn't even make sense. That doesn't even follow. Yeah, man, no notable change yet. So
give it time. It was a mild evening last night. It wasn't super hot, but I'm sure give it a couple days. Actually, I've been told that it's actually climate change, not global warming anymore, and that that it's not that the things are getting warmer. It's that the weather changes.
Yeah, I remember probably about a dozen years ago, you know, when I was more into that kind of shit. Here in what was it? Probably Young Turks or some bullshit. They were like, yeah, man, it was really like a marketing like they shouldn't have called it global warming. It's like, I think back then they were going for climate deterioration was the new one, because just saying just warming isn't accurate, because obviously some places it's getting colder. So they're like, well, you know, we got to sell it as, oh, this is just disrupting enough shit to have this climate deterioration, you know, which, I mean, from a marketing standpoint would have been a better way to go. You know, it's an easier sell. And I mean, I don't know, despite where you fall on like the spectrum of man-made versus non-man-made, you know, climate deterioration just sounds better. You know, it's scarier. It's you know, it's something that you could say, oh, it's not even man-made, it's just something that's happening. So you could sell that. Global warming, it's just kind of like dumbed down and stupid. But I guess in the 80s and 90s when they were pushing that shit, it kind of worked.
Well, there were a bunch of polls and stuff that came out in like the late 1990s, early 2000s that talked about how the average person, when asked about it, didn't think global warming was necessarily a bad thing. Like they were okay with less winter and less cold temperatures. And then on top of that, so have you ever heard of Michael Crichton's book State of Fear? I asked you a question right as you muted yourself.
No, I haven't. He did Congo and Jurassic Park. That's that guy, right?
Okay, yes. So a lot of the stuff that Michael Crichton wrote, because all of his stuff was like sci-fi type stuff, the science side of a lot of his writing was actually fairly well done and well researched. And so his book State of Fear was actually like this big anti-climate change, global warming. It went through like a lot of science. Like he had a whole glossary in the back of all of the actual research and everything that he had cited throughout this book that went into explaining why all of like climate change was being poorly represented and just absolutely wrong. Like, because at that time there was all this talk about this was around the time when An Inconvenient Truth came out and all of that. And so basically State of Fear basically just debunked everything in Inconvenient Truth. It talked about how they talked about like the polar ice caps were melting. That wasn't true. In fact, at that time, the polar ice caps were actually expanding in a number of different places. It was a complete debunking of everything Inconvenient Truth but in a science fiction novel. So it's really cool. It's worth a read.
It's one of the reasons I like Heinlein is he's very like, and I've had people argue with me about this, but like he's very like realistic, like sci-fi. You know what I mean? Like, because I have a hard time with the suspension of disbelief, you know, when it comes to like movies and shit. So I appreciate that, you know. But oh, it's coming. I'm warming up. Yeah, man, that's interesting. And I just gotta say, like, especially Inconvenient Truth, like I couldn't, even back when I was into that shit and that came out, I couldn't make it through that thing. It was awful. But like, I just, as like a little e environmentalist, I just really fucking hate, dude, because it's shit like that, you know. It's shit like the Inconvenient Truth bullshit, you know. It was such fucking bullshit. Now it was such provable bullshit, you know. But it's like, dude, like, that doesn't mean that there aren't real concerns we should have with our environment. You know what I mean? Like, there are a lot of real concerns we should have, but with shit like this, it just makes it where nobody wants to take you fucking seriously as an environmentalist, you know. And it sort of pushes people who, I don't know, you probably know the type, you might even be one, the kind of like contrarian motherfuckers who are just really like anti-environmentalists, you know. And I feel like it's just because they want to be contrarian to the fucking stupid douchey environmentalists, which I get. But it's like, okay, it's like the people who are like, we need all solar and electric cars now. It's like, you're stupid motherfuckers. The people who are like, no, fossil fuels are the best thing ever, and they're going to continue to be the best thing ever forever in eternity, and that's what it is. Like, no, you're a fucking dumbass. You know what I mean? Like, there's, like, if we believe in markets, right? Like, the green energy will come when we're ready for it, right? When the technology's there. And just because I can totally, like, if it weren't for fossil fuels, I'd probably be dead right now. You know, society, humanity would not be to the point it is. That's great, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be looking to move beyond that too. You know, so just like everything else, environmentalism just gets to be this big fucking hodgepodge of rent seeking. You know, I mean, isn't that just basically it with anything? It's just motherfuckers looking for government checks.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, especially as far as the environmental activism side of stuff goes, like it's just people looking for handouts and like that. I mean, because none of their solutions ever are based in reality. It's all pseudoscience and like silly bullshit. That's all of the statistics that they use and the evidence that they use for how these things are going to actually make changes in anything. Well, it's all hypothetical. Like none of it's none of it has any actual scientific backing.
And none of it, and it's all easy solutions from their point of view too. It's nothing that like they don't want to suck it up and make changes. They want, oh, let's have the government enact some shit. And, you know, a lot of times they don't realize the shit they want the government to enact would cause them some very painful changes in their life that they wouldn't want, you know. But yeah, like if, you know, I get a lot of people who, oh man, we need to ban Roundup because, you know, it gets in the Mississippi and goes to the Gulf of Mexico and creates a giant dead zone, which is true. And that's very awful. But when I ask those people if they only eat organic foods that don't use Roundup, they say, I can't afford that. Okay. So you think that them just banning it and making that farming illegal is going to make it as affordable or cheaper? Like, no, it's going to be expensive. But maybe you should, you know, put your money where your fucking mouth is. And until you're eating, you know, until you're patronizing the companies that want to make that change and are doing that, then I don't really want to listen to your bitch. I really want to listen to you tell me how we need more government control over my life and my fucking farm, you know?
Well, and there are a lot of incorrect assessments and stigmas put on like glyphosates and some of those other herbicides and pesticides as well. Like a lot of that stuff is a lot safer than what the average person who has no farming experience whatsoever understands. Like they see like these really specific instances and cases where something happened to somebody, or you have like this extremely like toxic concentration of something that's been dumped somewhere that like, yeah, that shit's clearly bad, but like the average farmer who's using Roundup is not doing that kind of stuff. Like it's
well, yeah, and that's a great point. You know, I mean, I say that, and of course, the massive amount of farming that happens, yes, some runoff comes in, but I'll tell you what farmers aren't in the business of doing: wasting chemicals, because that costs them a lot of money. You know who probably puts more glyphosate in the water system is homeowners spraying their fucking lawns and shit. They don't know what the fuck they're doing. And honestly, that's just so goddamn unnecessary. I'll bitch about environmental impacts of lawns all day long before environmental impacts of farms. And there's plenty on both sides. Big thing with farms is topsoil destruction, but that's another story.
When they act like farmers are out here like actively destroying their environment, it's like you do understand that farmers rely on that land and all of that to actually make a living. Like they're not going to actively do things that are not good for the land, that are not good for the environment, and actively destroy that. Like that's like saying I raise these great goats, so I'm going to go out here and just murder all of them and not have any goats to raise anymore. Like,
look at this disgusting farmland. My God.
Terrible.
I know, dude. What a fucking environmental eyesore. They should really put a subdivision in a fucking Publix distribution center right there instead.
You want to watch the... go ahead.
Yes. Oh, I was just going to say, I did find out talking to my neighbor the other day, the dude who owns like the 2,000 acres around us died. It's been like my biggest fear because then, of course, their kids chop it up. And I guess their kids were this close to fucking selling it to Publix. They're going to put a fucking warehouse like right there. And I guess my neighbor talked them out of it. It was like, what are you doing? Don't sell your fucking land. They're like, lease it to other farmers. Like, other farmers will pay you a lot of money to put their cows on it. And he's like, oh, I didn't even realize that was an option. And I guess they're not selling it to Publix now. So,
God, young people are fucking stupid. Like,
yeah.
Educate your children on what to do whenever folks die. Don't be selling shit to Publix or the government.
So yeah, man, what you got? I definitely want to watch something.
So here's the article from MSNBC that talks about how the Supreme Court's EPA decision it will effectively destroy the planet within like a generation. At least that's the way they're selling it. Let's have a listen to these gaggle of idiots.
Supreme Court, Pete. So the first decision is a loss for the Biden administration on the question of the Clean Air Act and the ability to combat global warming. The Supreme Court, by a 6-3 vote, has ruled that the Environmental Protection Agency does not have broad authority to try to set national energy policy by encouraging industries to switch to cleaner sources of power generation like wind and solar. This is a 6-3 ruling. The Supreme Court says that Congress did not give the EPA that broad authority, that the EPA's authority is limited more to trying to restrict emissions from specific coal-burning power plants. Now, this goes back to a tussle between the Obama and Trump administrations. The Obama administration had proposed a much broader clean air program for the EPA that would encourage industries to switch to cleaner sources. The Trump administration trimmed that back. And the question for the Supreme Court is, how broad is the EPA's authority? And the answer from the Supreme Court today is not broad at all. And the court has gone on to say that this is what is called a major question. And this has been a darling of conservatives, the idea that federal agencies, when they set regulations that would change policy in a broad way, that's a major question, and that they can't do that unless they have authority from Congress to act. So this decision is not only something that will restrict the EPA's authority going forward, but also may have implications for other federal agencies who want to undergo regulatory changes that the court feels are beyond what Congress has allowed them to do.
So this is really interesting because if you go on and you read this article, let's see. Here's what this deregulation could mean. An America free of government regulations would mean no federal emission standards, worsening our air quality and lurching us one step closer to fatal climate catastrophe, poorer water quality since the EPA also enforces water standards. It would be the end of Title IX, no more housing it would lead to more housing discrimination, poor food quality, our safety would be at jeopardy, like all of this stuff that would come from less government regulation. And the really crazy thing is, so have you looked at this court ruling and the original case itself?
No, I'm not that familiar with it. I saw a little bit about this the other day, and it was just like, oh my God, what the fuck is going on in the Supreme Court? But anyway, it's been a crazy couple of weeks.
So the really crazy thing about this ruling is it actually goes back to 2016, before the Trump administration even was a thing. The Supreme Court in 2016 ruled that, or put a stay on the original act. I can't remember the name of the act now, but it was the thing that would give the EPA like broad regulatory powers over the energy sector. And what they said at the time was that the EPA did not have that authority and that power, that this act was like way overstepped the reach of a government office or a branch like the EPA. So this act has never actually been applied. It's never gone. It never went into application because from the get-go, it was deemed to be an overreach of power. So this isn't rolling something back. This isn't like creating something or taking something away that's been protecting the environment for the last 6 years. It never went into effect because it was ruled an overreach of power from the beginning. So like
they get the same kind of attitude with like Social Security and shit when they're like, oh, they're cutting Social Security. And it's like, no, they've never cut Social Security. They might cut like scheduled increases, but you know, they always scream about shit that's never happened yet.
Well, and that was the problem with this act to begin with, was that it created regulatory standards for oil and coal industry that they like clearly stated up front that they would be impossible for any of those industries to actually meet any of the standards that it was creating. And so that was what got it tossed out, or got a stay put on it to begin with, was the fact that they openly admitted that all of the standards they were creating by this were unreasonable and nobody could actually do it. And in doing so, it would have created massive energy supply shortages. It would have created huge spikes in energy costs. Like everything would have gotten exponentially worse immediately if this had gone into effect at the time. So like it had a stay put on it right off the bat, and it has never gone into effect. So the reason that it's coming back around now is that basically they've hit a point where the Supreme Court and the EPA and the state of West Virginia were like, the state of West Virginia basically said, look, we've got to do something about this. Like it's had a stay put on it for 6 years. Like we need to have some sort of closure on this case. And the EPA said, well, we're never planning to actually do anything about it. We're not going to enact it. So you can just leave it alone because it's a moot point. We're not actually going to do it anyway. And the Supreme Court, effectively what this ruling is the Supreme Court says, no, we can't just leave this out here like for you to never do anything about it. We're going to go ahead and knock it in the head and call it dead. Like we're not going to just keep letting it go on forever with nothing being done on it. So that's all this is really. Like nothing changes today that was, nothing today is different than yesterday.
So like, because there's been a few of the like environmental shit, especially during like the Obama years, like the Paris thing and all, like that was something else that like was something that they were freaking out about, right? Didn't that like actually like do nothing, or
the Paris
the Paris Climate Accord or treaty or whatever it was?
So Trump did pull us out of that, which basically that whole thing didn't do anything either. It was just a giant money laundering scheme for the world economy.
You would have thought it was the end of the world.
Yeah, that thing just said that we're going to dump all of this money into moving the world towards better. I can't remember what it was. It was
what it said. It was like the U.S. is going to dump all this money for other countries. It was like we were going to foot the fucking bill.
Pretty much, yeah. I think it was the U.S. and maybe a couple other European countries were basically funding the whole thing, and and it accomplishes jack shit because all of the emission standards that they had, India, China, like none of the actual big culprits in those were on board with it. So it was basically, we're just going to dump trillions upon trillions of dollars into accomplishing jack shit and say that we're doing a good job for the environment.
Sounds about right. Par for the course.
Yeah, and so like Leighton says here, from what I understand, it was not in effect, but the statement made by the court yesterday sets a standard going forward for other EPA decisions. So it does, in a way, set them back years, just not fast. So yes, it's a setback in the. Basically, it establishes that if the EPA is going to do something, they have to actually use realistic goals and measures for how they're going to do it. Like it can't be based on pseudoscience and dumb bullshit, and it also can't be. They can't make regulations that are so outrageous that it would completely wreck the entire energy sector, like this original act was.
When do we get nuclear again? That's all I want to know.
Man, they don't want to talk about that shit.
Oh shit! I know. I mean, it almost be like too good of a solution.
There's some. I guess maybe it's because of Chernobyl and like other incidences, but like there's such a negative stigma around nuclear, and it's not even reasonable or logical for there to be such a negative stigma. Like if you look at everything that happened with Chernobyl, like it was all because of the regulatory agencies ignoring everything that was wrong, and also because the people who worked at the plant fucking things up and doing everything wrong, and the fact that it was being run by the Communist Party and they were more worried about making it look like it was doing good instead of actually running it the right way and addressing the problems that they had. Like there's
it
all
was
this
in like
negative
a shed. Yeah, it wasn't even like a facility. It was like a shed or some bullshit.
Yeah, there's all this negative stigma around nuclear because of incidents that have happened. But when you go and you actually look at the reasoning for why those incidents happen, if the energy department, say the EPA in this case, like for the U.S., if they were actually doing their job and doing what they're supposed to do, then none of these things would be a problem to begin with.
I've even heard, and I mean, obviously I don't know this, but I heard that like 3 Mile Island was kind of like an op. Like it happened, but it was like sabotage just to keep people scared of nuclear energy.
Yeah, I've seen stuff about that too. Like it seems like there's a lot of deliberate.
I believe anything these days.
Right, especially where making energy more affordable and clean and actually functional. Yeah, I mean that's not. It's like the medical industry. Like you can't make money off of healthy patients. You need them to be forever sick and forever in need of medicine or whatever. It's the same way with the energy sector. Like if you're producing abundant amounts of clean energy, well, where's the profit in that?
Sorry, I'm here. Yeah, man, it's like they're gonna use oil until it's gone. You know what I mean? And then the next thing will be lined up and ready. Like even if they know there's something better, they're just gonna be the ones to sell it. It's like when vapes come out. Like it's like the one that's owned by Philip Morris is gonna be the one that lasts. This is obviously a bad time to be making that statement with the whole Juul bullshit going on right now. but I do feel like that's kind of like the case. When the new one comes out, it's good. Okay, like the medical pot in Florida. It was delayed for years until the 5 big companies that were going to run it had it codified in law that they were the 5 companies. It's that kind of fucking bullshit. Because yeah, man, you hear all the different stories of somebody comes up with some new exciting power thing, and yep, mysterious heart attack. That's definitely the big one. I've had people say, "Oh, wouldn't it be cool to have a car that runs on water?" I was like, "Nah, I'd rather live."
Yeah, I don't want to research that any. I kind of enjoy life. You remember I don't know if you probably not, but there was a movie in like the early 2000s or late 90s called Chain Reaction with Keanu Reeves, where it was based around that premise that they figured out how to create a never-ending a never-ending energy supply off of like splitting water atoms or something like that, and then it gets sabotaged, and like the whole thing is like this. It becomes like a giant conspiracy theory movie of they're trying to figure out who sabotaged it and then they're trying to like recreate the experiment and make it. But it's like the big energy companies are trying to recreate it to get it to work so that they can capitalize off of like it's. I mean, that it's if you watch it, it's like, well, that's probably the way it actually happens.
Well, it's like Rockefeller back like when they were cartelizing the medical industry. They wanted to make holistic medicine illegal. So he sent people to go attend all the holistic medicine colleges, schools, etc., learn everything they could. They learned what plants they used to heal things. So they went out and they learned how to synthesize all those plants and compounds in the plants. And then they made like holistic medicine and holistic schools like illegal. So it's like, oh, hey, we're going to go in, we're going to go ahead and use all your research, basically monopolize these items and force you out and then completely tell everybody forever that you're a bunch of quacks, even though we're doing far worse stuff with the same, same material.
Yeah. Kind of fucked up how all that works, especially if you look, the more you look into history, the more it fucked up it really kind of seems. Speaking of Rockefellers and oil and all of that fun stuff, who's really to blame for all of our oil and gas problems?
I have also called for changes. I've released 1 million barrels of oil per day from our oil reserve, and in addition to getting other nations to move forward, a total of 240 million barrels of oil to release from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. Number one. Number two, I've asked Congress, would they in fact go and temporarily end the tax on gasoline at the pump? And thirdly, to ask the states to do the same thing. If we do these things, it's estimated we could bring down tomorrow, if Congress agreed and the states agreed, we could bring down the price of oil about $1 a gallon at the pump, in that range. And so we could have immediate relief in terms of the reduction of the elimination of temporary elimination of the gas tax. And so I think there's a lot of things we can do and we will do, but the bottom line is ultimately the reason why gas prices are up is because of Russia. Russia. The reason why the food crisis exists is because of Russia. Russia not allowing grain to get out of Ukraine. And so that's the way in which I think we should move, and I think it would have a positive impact on the price at the pump as well.
Russia. It's all Russia.
That's simple. Why don't we go do something about that guy?
Isn't it funny that the food shortages are because Russia won't let grain out of Ukraine?
But they let our military shit in.
Right?
They let those weapon shipments in. What the fuck?
They're letting all of these damn celebrities and politicians just fly in and out all willy-nilly, but they won't let our grain out? What?
Yeah, Bono, no problem. Get him in there.
Ben Stiller? Absolutely. We love Zoolander. Grain in and out? Oh, no, sir. No. Can't do that. Yeah, it's fucking nuts. Well, and did you see the thing where all of these Ukrainian bigwigs have been using all of this money that's getting dumped in to buy like luxury resorts in Switzerland and stuff like that, or Sweden or somewhere?
I did not.
I like your apron.
Oh, thank you. You see how they were all? Yes, I did see that actually. They're buying giant motherfucking houses in beautiful places.
Just it's your tax dollars at work.
Buying
mansions in the Swiss Alps for Ukrainian oligarchs.
Hey, there was another group of people that like put a lot of money in like the Swiss banks and stuff, right? I forget who that was.
You hit a bunch of resources.
Yeah, who was it, you know?
I don't know. We should check. I think that there were some Americans who might have helped them do it. Oh gosh, what was the name of that agency? CI something. I just can't recall.
No, those guys never do stuff like that. They're completely above board at all times. Like they're just looking out for our safety and well-being here.
Oh fuck! So on our local news yesterday, they were at like this center somewhere in Tampa, and it was it was basically like a data collection center, but it's all framed. It's like, man, do you just not know what's real and what's not real? You know, on the internet. Well, these guys have been around since the 40s, and they've been helping our government determine what's real and what's not. You know, and they're framing them as like these fucking heroes. And you go through, and it's like they're a fucking private spy agency, that's contracted by the fucking government to collect data on us. But the amount of times that they're like, thank you for your service, and they do this to keep us safe, and they protect us by getting this data and protect us from it. But like they never said anything like real. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I was like, wow, it's just building up for this fucking domestic private spy agency.
Yeah, it's like the Pinkertons times 10. Get that on the government payroll and all set.
So the Pinkertons are kind of an interesting, and I don't know a lot about them, but I want to learn more because it's like on the face of it, and from a lot of instances of what I've read, it's like, okay, they're a private whatever security and or investigation, and they did a lot of things that were just fine, for us, whatever we want to call ourselves, as far as we see, private security. But then you hear some of the shit where they might have not been so great, when they were doing the bidding of some of these big corporations. But then I'm like, well, it's also against the unions. Not really give a fuck about the unions. So.
Yeah, no, I think, and that's where I think, like, because I have a very cursory understanding of it all, but like, and then they, kind of working with the government and working with Lincoln to like, spy on the Confederacy and all that. Like, it's like, okay, like now you start like getting into things that are. So have we watched this?
What? Dad killing chickens?
Yeah, Dad killing chickens.
Yeah, this has been going on the whole time.
Welcome to the party. Welcome to the party, pal.
I gotta watch it. I gotta see this process. Your cones look bigger than mine. I have time.
Thanks. I got big birds.
Oh man.
I'm
probably gonna have to.
Clyde can't carry on with the show as Dad kills chickens. He's gotta stop and watch.
Hey man,
he's got to compare.
Okay.
He's got to compare technique. I just had to prove to everybody I'm not a LARPer.
Yeah. So along that lines, the lines of the Pinkertons, and I mean, I don't know exactly what he's talking about. I do feel like I remember hearing like, that there was not good stuff. But is that just like what happens when you have a private agency, right? And there's nobody to kind of watch over them or keep them in line, right? I know they went after a bunch of like cowboys and stuff, and I'm sure that was always above board and
Oh yeah, the range
lawful,
wars. I forgot about that. Yeah, they had a lot to do with that.
Yeah. So I mean, is this what happens when you don't have oversight of some sort of larger, dare I say, governmental organization?
Well, maybe that's the thing is like two things. Like one, are they doing like private work like for the government? Because then it's like, okay, well, what's the difference between a fucking U.S. Marine and a fucking BlackRock or Blackwater or whatever they were called? The private motherfuckers over there. You know what I mean? Like, oh, they're just given like a fucking license to do whatever the fuck by the government. So maybe the issue is two things. One, these private security forces doing work for the government. Okay, well then they have no liability or accountability, right? Because the one who would be doing the accounting would be the government. And then the other thing is, I don't know, was there competition? Were these the only ones? Or were they the only ones who were legally allowed to exist? Were they the only ones who just happened to exist? I don't know the answers to these questions, but those would be the questions I would ask, to try to sort of figure this out.
Yeah, I wonder, was there competition? I mean, and part of me, like, it's one of those things, right? Because you look at the range wars, and it's like, man, those cowboys were doing the right, I don't like them for stopping guys from robbing trains and doing it. I don't know. There's something about that. Like, you put an end to Butch Cassidy and the lot. Like, screw you guys. Like, that was cool, but maybe not. I don't know. So what do you do? Do you leave the heads on all the way?
You're muted.
So I put them through the plucker machine with the head. I rinse them before I scald them. I shock them in cool water, and then I throw them in the plucker.
How do you get them dead without cutting the head
off?
Yeah.
Practice. We had go ahead.
No, I get like through the neck. Like, I think my gashes in the neck are much bigger than yours. My gash is bigger than yours.
The ideal way to do it is you split the jugular and not the windpipe. And I used to focus real hard on trying to do that, but what ended up happening was I wasn't killing them effectively enough. It was taking them longer to die than it should have. I don't worry about that now. I usually get the windpipe as well, when I do the jugular, and I just don't worry about it because they die in 20 seconds instead of 2 minutes. So, but I guess that's the ideal way to do it if you're really good. But I haven't been able to be that good yet and be efficient and not cut my hand off and be able to do a few dozen birds in a day.
Yeah, I hear you. And then I never thought of it. Why do you leave the head on?
Well, what am I gonna do? Chop it off, then throw it? Like, it's just, I put it in the plucker machine. It comes up here. I take the feet and the head off with my chef's knife there. And so it's just the efficient way to do it. I don't not like I need it for a handle or anything. It's just sort of the way the process works out.
I usually cut the jugular and the windpipe, and then I try to pith them. I try to stab them in the back of the head, but I can't. Sometimes I can, sometimes I can't. Then before I put them in the plucker, I always just cut the head off, just so it's not hanging off.
It does seem weird with the head there. I mean, I gotta admit it does.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. Check this out. I've got my birds that I'm doing, in the cage here. But then we've got these other birds that roam around that look awful similar to them. And they really like to come around and eat the other little bits of feathers from these birds. And you are some brave, dumb motherfuckers. Because I could just snatch one of y'all up and throw y'all right in there.
Well, I was going to use.
Yeah, hold on. Before we go, hold on. You got to look at Dag's screen. And you got his carport. And then you got these mountains underneath. And for half a second there, I thought Dag's screen went down into the mountains below. And I was like, damn, I didn't know Florida had mountains like that. I'm trying to figure out where he was.
There's a movie called Identity. And it's a pretty crappy horror movie. Or whatever, thriller. From the early 2000s or late 90s. But one of the characters in that movie is from the small town that I live in. Or I live near. And at the end of the movie, she's talking about the whole time she just wants to go home and grow her orange trees and this and that. She's got 9 acres orange trees. So then in the movie, it shows her in her orange grove, and she's tending it with a rake and shit, the way that people don't take care of orange groves. But there's fucking mountains in the background. I'm like, okay, California, hello. It's just so funny to me. You'd think somebody would think about that.
That was a pretty good movie. Did you figure out that it was the kid?
No, not till I saw it 20 years ago, and I remember that. This go around, I remembered. But no, I don't think I figured it out ahead of time back then.
Yeah, I had no idea. It was shocker for me. Clyde
it's got to be a twist.
I didn't even catch the movie title.
You're not missing anything.
Yeah, that's what, and it totally passed through me because I've never seen it or heard of it. So,
I was in college. I went and saw it with a girl, and she got it right. She was like, "Oh, it's the kid." I'm like, "There's no fucking way." I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, "There's always got to be some weird twist on movies like this. It's gonna be the kid." Like, you're batshit crazy. And then at the end, it's a kid. Well,
It's
no
not going to
more.
be Gary Busey's cousin, even though that'd be the obvious choice.
Well, clearly she's too smart. No more dates for her. Can't be going out with a woman smarter than I am.
Got to keep the hierarchy right.
Let's see. Well, looking at Clyde, Clizide of the liberal word order. What about the liberal world order? What do they got to say about that?
Listen, we can't afford to pay $4.85 a gallon for months, years. This is just not sustainable.
What we heard from the president today was a clear articulation of the stakes that was about the future of the liberal world order, and we have to stand firm.
What do you say to all those people who say they can't afford to pay $5 a gallon for gas? It's what you got to do for us to maintain the liberal world order. Just suck it up. Stop being poor. Fuck you.
Stop being selfish, assholes. This is what we got to do, okay?
Do you remember? And this was, I think, when they started in with like Russia and the oil and prices started going up a little bit, and there was like, oh God, I think the guy in like the transportation department said like they're not doing this on purpose, like it, and half the all the tinfoil hat people are like, no, this is you're pushing us to green energy. This is why you're doing this. And it was like, no, we're not. No, this is happening because, Russia and blah, blah, blah. And then here we are, 6 months later, and it's like, oh no, we're going to do this because we need to do this, because we need green energy. And this is going to force us to go green. It's like, are you kidding? Like, and people don't remember half this crap. I don't know how the attention span of a freaking fruit fly the world over. It's insane.
See, that's why things like the whole Roe versus Wade thing is, it's never actually a voting issue for the left, because like they're talking about it now, elections won't be until November. They'll have forgotten all about this and moved on to the next thing that came after the next thing that came after the next thing by the time we get around to November. But like the right, they still remember all of the psychosis that came up around the overturning of Roe versus Wade. So come November, the pro-life voting bloc will show up in droves to vote for it, and the left won't, because they've already forgotten about it and moved on to something else retarded that is the thing of the day that they're mad about now.
I don't know. I get that, but at the same time, I think it's part of this bigger picture of the right recognizes the TDS, for lack of a better term. It's morphed into something else, and the left is afraid of Nazi fascism that's like constantly pushed on them and told that like this is what's happening. And whether it's the SCOTUS and the EPA, and now there's no reason for the whole federal government. SCOTUS just undermined the entire federal government by pulling some back from the EPA. Like, it's all part of this bigger thing that like conservatives want to burn the world and murder you, and for conservatives it's the same thing of, oh, these liberals want to kidnap your children and turn you gay and make the frogs rape your ear. Like, I mean, it's all the same thing, and I think it's just part of these bigger narratives, and it's I don't know. I think people are going to remember it. You know what I mean? I might not remember the finite details of Roe v. Wade being turned over, but I remember that it pushes your rage level higher, and it doesn't give it time to come back down to normal. So it's always going up. And I feel like that's where we're heading.
Well, speaking of ramping it up, squad member Representative Bowman predicts civil war if the GOP takes control in the midterms. I wonder how
is this gaslighting?
I think that's what this is called. Let's see what old Representative Bowman has to say about this.
Who is Representative Bowman?
Congressman Jamal Bowman resorting to desperate claims like this.
Jamal Bowman.
He's from New York, right?
I think that's right. He's one of the squad, which is.
I thought the squad was just a bunch of chicks.
It's AOC,
2022
Ilhan
squad.
Omar, whatever Presley, I think that's
Ayana. Is Cori Bush in there? She's another crazy loon.
Yeah, I think so. Basically, it's all the like the ultra progressive, like the Democratic Socialists, basically. Yeah. That's the squad. So let's see what squad. Let's see what Squad Bowman has to say.
Republicans ahead of the midterms.
We got to understand that this is a group that has been radicalized and have been pushing for violence and pushing for even civil war. So that is what's at stake right now in terms of this election. Our democracy is hanging by a thread, and Black and brown people, our lives are in the balance if these people come back into power.
Republican congressional candidate Jeremy Hunt joins me now. Jeremy.
Do people actually believe that? I'd love to know the percentage of minority populations that feel like, their life is in the balance here, right? That like conservatives are actually going to, I don't know, ban interracial marriage and, force them back into slavery. Like, are these real thoughts, or is this just hyperbole from the
I feel like it's real thoughts of white women. Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of being funny, but not.
No, I gotcha.
Just going on like the people I know and the shit I see on social media. Yeah, it's white women. They're like, oh yeah, next they're coming for interracial marriage, and gay marriage. Like and do they really believe that? I don't imagine they do, to be honest. I feel like it's just the thing to say. Maybe they heard somebody say. I don't fucking know. I can't imagine they actually believe that. I just can't. But I have been fooled before.
So we talked about this on Peddling Fiction yesterday, or I talked about it with Johnny on Peddling Fiction yesterday. Like there has been talk since the overturning of Roe versus Wade that the Supreme Court is going to come after. What was it? There were 3 other rulings that had
love
been mentioned.
And something and
yeah. The only one that I could really see potentially coming up is Oberfeld, the gay marriage one from 2014, because that one kind of fell in a similar vein as Roe versus Wade. Like it had originally been a states' rights issue. The Supreme Court ruling made it a federal thing. It was, at least from my perspective and a lot of other people, like when you go and you look at it, the justification that was used was along the same lines as Roe versus Wade, and it should be a states' rights issue, not a federal issue. So that's the only one that I could see potentially coming back around. But I don't. But I think for it to come back around, like for Roe versus Wade, you had the case of the Mississippi abortion bill that got pushed to the Supreme Court. There's not some like outstanding case that would push Oberfeld back into the court's view for it to potentially be overturned. Like, I don't think they can just go and say, hey, look, we're going to pull this back up from 8 years ago and we're going to overturn it because it was bad precedent. Like, there has to be something that would trigger that being brought back in front of them. And I don't know that there's any legislation or any rules or laws or impending legislation or anything out there that would actually serve as the catalyst to get it back in front of them.
I mean, does like anybody really like okay, I know a lot of people who like care about like abortion or whatever, right? Like, from either side, obviously. But the ones that have them, yeah. It may be 2022, but still only half my birds have testicles. Okay, a lot of people care about abortion, right? But like, maybe I'm just like, I don't know. Do people really give a fuck about like gay marriage like anymore? Like, are people still like actively like against it? Or do people care enough? Like, I understand like there were people who were back in the day.
So,
but I mean, do people still give a fuck? Clyde, do you care?
I think to some degree, yes, but I don't think it's necessarily the gay part of it. I think you have people, right? A group of people that look at gay marriage, they look at marriage, right? And say, look, the Bible defines marriage as a relationship between a man and a woman, joined in front of God. And so this idea that you can have gay marriage is a corruption of that, right? And marriage was never something that the state should have been involved in, right? This is something that happens in the church, and it's between the church. Now, if you ask these same people, like, do you care if someone has a civil union and they are, unified in the presence of the state and they get a tax break? Like, most of them are probably going to say, no, I don't care. Like, you know what I mean? Like, unless they're, the head of a church somewhere, they're probably not going to say, hey, you know what I mean? Other than that, I wouldn't think anybody really cares. I mean, I don't know. Justin, you got?
No, I don't. I really don't think it's something that is.
So then I guess I was just going to say, to bring it around, that that's why I feel like nobody's going to, if nobody cares and nobody's pushing for it, like, why is it, you know what I mean? Like, I'm agreeing with you. I don't think it's going to go anywhere, I guess is what I'm saying.
Right. And like Roe versus Wade wouldn't have been brought back around for consideration if the psychotic pro-choice contingent hadn't thought that the Mississippi abortion bill was so restrictive, which, the Mississippi abortion bill is based on global standards. Like it's an average of what most of the rest of civilized world goes with. Like it was a 15-week was where the cutoff was, and like most of the EU is in the 12 to 16 week range. So it was an averaging of a global standard. But that was so restrictive that the pro-choice nutsos had to bring it before the Supreme Court, and then get Roe versus Wade overturned. Like if they had just left it alone and not fought, the global standard, then none of this ever would have happened. Like it's their own fucking fault.
Was really interesting. Like I just find that amusing because like I remember some of the tweets that happened when it came out, when it happened from like EU leaders and stuff, and like, oh, we stand by women and blah blah blah, and America, oh yeah. And it's like, hey, you guys have like some of the same rules. You have more stringent rules than like we do over here, like, oh, bodily autonomy. Okay, here, go get your vaccine, and then you can do this. Like, it's like, who are you, clown? Like, my God.
Right, like like Kentucky and Indiana, like the states right around here, all have abortion restrictions that are like 22 or 24 weeks. Like after 22 or 24 weeks, like that's there you go. Like they're already in the Christian conservative states. We have less restriction than in all of the European Union. So like, yeah,
I did not realize that that was the case. I mean, from the way that you see like the left and the European whatever, being so like you'd think that like in Europe they'd have, like fourth trimester abortions or something. So that they're only 15 weeks or so, I guess I'm a little surprised at that.
Yeah, 15 is the average. I think it's from country to country, it varies anywhere from 12 to 16. Some of them are 18, but like I think there's only like one, maybe two countries that have over 20 weeks where it's legal.
I don't like the terms pro-choice or pro-life. I mean, yeah, they're easy, but just to use them to keep things simple. Let me say, as like probably the most pro-choice person on the show, 15, 16 weeks seems like plenty of time, right? Like that should be plenty of time to get your shit figured out. I mean, anything like
if you don't know that
anything beyond
23 weeks on,
well, that's a problem in itself. All right, because you should know within 4 or 5 weeks, right?
Right. I mean, at 15, 16 weeks, you're at roughly 4 months, 3.5 to 4 months along. Like you know that you're pregnant. Like, you probably have a pretty good idea what it is.
Like week 1 of being pregnant and like having an abortion is like, let's say best case scenario, uncomfortable, but it doesn't get any more comfortable. 15, 16 weeks, that's extremely uncomfortable, for sure. So like, for people to be really pushing for like the third, like that's just so insane to me that you would be pushing for that.
You know what the solution is that we should just redefine vaginas as AK-47s, and then they can avoid government restrictions. Although and correct me if I'm wrong, aren't AK-47s illegal?
The only ones that shoot 47 bullets a second.
I might be wrong on that, but that might have been something that got overturned or that was allowed to expire in like the assault weapons ban or something. But I'm almost positive AK-47.
I feel like I've seen enough of them on Twitter that they're not. But
yeah, no, I don't. I've had no indication that they were illegal. I know a lot of people were into AKs and love AKs over ARs.
I think it's maybe, I don't know. Does it have to be modified so that it's not automatic?
Fully automatics are illegal, and that was based on that's like some restriction or gun law from
1936 Federal Firearms Act or whatever.
Yeah. I think it was originally from like 1919 or early 1920s, and then it was ratified and made some amendments to in the 30s. But like that's been like fully automatic weapons have been illegal for damn near a century.
Mm-hmm. Not my fully automatic weapon.
You're not supposed to say that out loud, dumbass.
Talk about his dick.
Yeah, come on, man.
Whatever, that thing's pump action.
Oh fuck, that's funny.
If a corporation can be defined as a person, why not redefine vaginas as AK-47s? That way they'd be free of government restrictions by those who care about the sanctity of life.
Hey, you know what? Go for it. You won't be able to vote anymore, and we'll have a better planet altogether. So.
How long before how long before the Supreme Court takes up the 19th Amendment and overturns that?
I've been waiting all my life for that.
Which one's that? Is that the woman's right to vote?
Yes.
Do you guys remember? I don't know if you guys watched The Man Show back in the day, but he went around with a petition to end women's suffrage and got so many women to sign it, like stop women's suffraging, because it does sound like such a terrible word,
Mm-hmm.
And then there was only like one woman who was like, wait, what are you doing? No, don't sign this. Don't sign his thing. You know what you're signing? And nobody knew what they were signing. So fucking funny.
Oh, Jimmy Kimmel. What happened to you?
I know, dude. At least Corolla's still based.
Yeah. All right, I gotta run. Y'all have fun.
All right, see ya, buddy. Thanks for popping in.
Oh wow, he ducked out super quick. Well, according to Joey Two Guns, today is the ATF's 50th birthday. There was, we'll close it out in this because I have to get out of here pretty quick too. There was a shootout out in southeastern Kentucky, which these are the hill people, so some crazy shit happens out there. But I think 2 or 3 ATF agents got shot. They tried to serve this. Tried to serve a warrant on this guy at like 9 o'clock at night, out in the fucking hills of eastern Kentucky, and instead they got they opened fire on him. I think like a total of 6 cops got shot, 2 or 3 dead, and so happy birthday ATF! Don't go trying to serve no-knock warrants in the middle of the fucking night in the hills of eastern Kentucky. That's a good way for anybody to get shot.
It's just try to think of the example. It's like, I don't know, in soccer or something where it's like somebody just brushes someone and they take a dive and go, it's like you fucking set yourself up for this shit, Like you said, 9 p.m. in the fucking hills of Kentucky, like you're gonna get, even the best case scenario, dude, you're gonna get shot at, man. That's just insane. They do the SWAT raids in plain clothes. How would you do a fucking SWAT raid in plain motherfucking clothes and then get mad when somebody shoots at you? It's almost like you're setting it up that way.
It's like, if there's one place that you don't do something like that, it's the hill country of fucking eastern Kentucky, where literally every one of those hillbillies has a gun, and they're just sitting in their living room watching Judge Judy, waiting for somebody to walk through that door. Like that's the only thing they got going on a Thursday night, and you just like genie in the bottle and granted him his wish. It could not possibly be more fucking retarded.
Because democracy basically means government by the people, of the people, for the people. But the people are retarded.